remember thinking, oh, this is where a lot of people stop. They get one comment like this and they go, they're right about me. And then they never come back to their artistry or their creativity. And it was such a clear line in the sand moment where I thought, okay, obviously I get to keep moving.
We all have this deep desire, this yearning, especially the feminine, to be seen. And yet at the same time, it's one of our greatest fears to allow ourselves to be seen.
Vulnerability is the access point for so much connection and so much growth and so much leadership, but we've been hardwired to think the opposite.
Sometimes we need to see other women go first before we can be like, oh, I can do that too.
The fear of like, well, what if people cancel me? It's like, bitch, I'm a human. You can't cancel me.
Bryn, I'm so excited to be here with you in person. I feel like the last time that we were in person together was maybe the first time we met in San Diego.
For the full moon circle?
Yeah, I think it might have been like a Lionsgate something, some type of circle at this beautiful park. It's actually one of my favorite parks in San Diego. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is bring women together. And I just remember appreciating so much where you were at that point on your journey. And then thinking about how much has changed for you since then, I guess for both of us, but really watching your journey and continuing to be inspired by you and continuing to just feel like you are following your truth and really making a huge impact for a lot of women by sharing your story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was on the way here thinking of when we had met, if we had met, I was like, oh yeah, I think that was the one and only time we got to be in person together. And funny story, right after that activation we all had, I know you dropped in super deep, all sorts of yummy things came up. We set intentions, and I had like one of the worst flares. I was going through a lot of autoimmune stuff at the time, like within 48 hours after that. And I just remember thinking, oh, so much of this is coming up for me to shift and to finally heal my body and to get rid of this cycle of being trapped in this state of inflammation. And I just remember getting wrecked after that and thinking this is not a coincidence that this happened after I drop in with a bunch of really powerful women to talk about what I'm actually getting rid of and calling in for myself. So that was where we left off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our bodies are so intelligent and wise, and when we go through these energetic upgrades and initiations, there is this shedding of old ways of being, and
Totally.
autoimmune stuff is often around our body attacking itself,
Oh,
which
big time.
is often a reflection of things that are going on for us emotionally and mentally too.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was out of alignment in a couple places. I mean, as we do, it's like alignment exists because we know what lack of alignment feels like. And that was just such a wake up call to really come back to vitality so that I could be on the path that I'm on now. So luckily we made it out. But yeah, it feels like no time has passed and also a million years have passed since that moment.
Yeah, you've gone through so many different identity shifts and upgrades, career-wise, personally, relationally, even in like who you are as a woman.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to unpack a lot of that
Yeah,
today
me
and
too.
really support our listeners to see what's possible when we are really doing that deep listening and also courageously following that truth. Something that you and I both have in common is that we went through divorces pretty early on. You were 30?
I left my marriage at 29, just before
29.
30. Yeah.
Yep. And I left mine at 27. And so
Wow.
that's not super common.
No.
And I think that with that, there are a lot of similarities. And there's also, you have your unique magic that you're here to share. So
Yeah.
recently you shared something in one of your posts that was along the lines of sharing my story has been a path of leading me to deeper confidence, deeper clarity, and deeper self-expression. And so I want to start there because you're a writing mentor and you're an amazing storyteller and you're supporting women on their own journeys to be able to courageously share their story. So tell me more about how writing has supported you to step into deeper confidence.
Yeah. So I always like to say that I'm a writer, therefore, there's nothing you could say about me that I haven't already looked at myself. And I mean that with my whole heart. I've been looking at my own stories my whole life, like from the time I was a little girl, I remembered loving getting those marble composition books. And in fourth grade, we would get them on Friday. We would take them home, and I would write stories that I would give to my teacher on Monday. And then she would write little notes about what she loved. And it was just such a special, magical exchange. And so I've always loved to write and express myself through story. My grandmother's an author, and it's just been something ingrained in me. Who knows why some souls just are incarnated with these certain paths, but mine chose writer. But I don't think I knew that for a really long time, at least not in the way that I've owned it lately. But when I went through my divorce, it was like this part of my soul that said, you have to let people witness this part of you, because I had been on this path of just hiding for so long, like living in this man's shadow. And I like to say, for no fault of anyone's, like I chose that path just as much as he did, but I felt very much his wife for the entirety of our relationship. Like that was my identity. I didn't really have anything that felt like mine.
Mm.
And so when I left, it felt like I was literally like the visual I have was like bursting through a wall naked, being like, someone just see me. And writing was my access point to that. And I started with the platform that we all have access to, which is Instagram. And I had no agenda. I just wanted to start to share my story. And a lot of it wasn't thought out, there was no strategy. I was just writing these short snippets of life. And so much of it was from a lot of pain. Like I was alchemizing and moving through so much grief and heartbreak and confusion. And I needed a place for that to go. And historically, CrossFit was a place that I moved through a lot of emotions, whether I realized that or not in the past. But when I left and our gym disappeared and my community disappeared, I thought, okay, again, I have to take this and put this somewhere. And again, a lot of this was not conscious, but I started to write my story. And it was so special because what I noticed was that when I owned things fully and I just named them, like it was just talking about the weather, whether that was infidelity or drug use or leaving my marriage on a whim. And sure, sometimes did it provoke people? Absolutely. Like people are human. But I noticed a couple things. One, the shame within me, if I had any residual shame, it just was obliterated because it was like this light was shown on it and met with so much love and compassion and that feeling of being seen that I was aching for. And I was just being seen by so many people. And it was like every time that happened, a part of me would heal and grow and think, okay, if I can share this part of me to the world, then like I can be loved and known for this part of me. And I think about that even in my relationship with my love now. It's like, how could my ex husband have really loved me when he didn't know me? He didn't know all of these things inside of me, just like I didn't know so many things inside of him. So, how could it have possibly been true love? Because we were hiding from each other. Whereas now, the man that I'm engaged to, like he's seen every part of me. He met me when I was crying on a table at like an energy healer's office. So he's seen all of it. Um but it was such a powerful realization at that point in my I didn't even know career to see that vulnerability is the access point for so much connection and so much growth and so much leadership. But we've been hardwired to think the opposite, that if we're vulnerable and we share our truths, that people are not going to love us, that they're going to come for us with pitchforks. And writing allows me to look at it from a distance and to take shape of it and to manipulate it. And I use that in the most positive way. It's like to look at the story from a bird's eye view and go, oh, interesting choice that I use that word. Is that the word I want to use to describe my ex husband or to describe the mold that I went through? And you really get to look into your psyche when you see the way that you're writing something. So it's just helped me become so much more of a woman who takes up space and is able to be seen because, again, there's nothing I haven't looked at or written about that anyone could ever say or take from me. And I think that just makes a woman who's just unfuckwithable.
Mm. Yeah, I talk about this intimacy paradox, which is like we all have this deep desire, this yearning, especially the feminine, to be
Mhm.
seen.
Big
And yet
time.
at the same time, it's one of our greatest fears to
Mhm.
allow ourselves to be
Mhm.
seen.
Mhm.
And so you're really speaking to that of like, yeah, there are these parts of me that are afraid to be seen because I have shame around them,
Yeah.
because I'm afraid of being judged, because I'm
Mhm.
afraid that if I'm not perfect, then that means there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
And
Mm,
once, like you said, you take that out of the shadow and you name it, what's really amazing is that other people get to see, oh, I'm also like human and I'm not the only one who has those thoughts. I'm not the only one who's quote unquote made mistakes or
mhm.
who has done things that I'm not super proud of. And I'm not the only one who thinks this way. And there's so much permission in that. Like, that's a word that I
Mhm.
feel like is coming up a lot lately is
Mm.
like sometimes we need to see other women go first
Totally.
before we can be like, oh, I can do that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
A small example of that that's coming through is I used to follow this mentor of mine, and she wrote something one day. It was so small, but it was something about like how she likes to take a bubble bath in the morning. And I was like,
You can do
oh my God, you can do that?
that?
And it's so luxurious, right? Like it was one of those things that would be like, you can't do that. That's so
Mhm.
unproductive. And
Mhm.
that's, so just, you can't do that
Mhm.
and giving myself permission to be like, yeah, if I want to do that, I can do that. A
Mhm.
small little thing,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, so
Yeah.
true. I feel like it is permission, and I especially for women, I'm seeing this more and more now the deeper I go down the writing path. And it's really writing is the vehicle, but the destination is just freedom, liberation at the highest level to like really know that you are known for your full true self. I think is something so few people can really say, especially with the world that we live in where everything can be so cultivated and catered to look a certain way on social media. And I'm seeing this more and more with women that have big brands who are terrified to let people really see them because they've built their success and they've built their money and their platform being one type of person. And I think it's really scary to see someone who's doing the literal opposite. That's just not in a box, saying the most, don't want to use the word unhinged, but some people may say unhinged. To me, it just feels like truth coming out of my lips. There's this phrase I've been noodling on lately, which is that untold truths make even big lives feel hollow. And I think that's because when a woman stuffs her truth down, she feels like an imposter in her own life. And I'm basically saying, but you don't have to. Here's this path where you can share all of those truths. And maybe it's never on the platform that you think it has to be on. It's in intimate spaces where women are just holding up mirrors and looking at you, going, me too. Like, you cheated on your husband. I also did. And we're not bad people for doing that. Turns out a lot of people have these thoughts and sometimes people act on them. Or you've gone down this path of bankruptcy, me too. And there's just liberation and liberation until you realize there are no chains left and you are just fully yourself. And not only can you be loved for that, but you could also have a career where you make money from that. It's like next level mindfuckery for some people.
Totally. You recently started a Substack, which I love. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to hear, like, what has your experience been like for you in exploring a different platform than, since I started my business, it's been Instagram. Like,
right.
that's the main platform that everyone uses. And I'm really enjoying a lot of writers are moving over to Substack, and I'm
Totally.
really enjoying that. Yeah.
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
It feels like we're all of the lover girls, the poets, the mystics, the places where we get to just be so too much. And I use that very intentionally. Whereas Instagram, it's cultivated, it's 2,200 characters. It's can only be for like the split second of attention that people are used to moving towards now. Like these reels, they're 3 seconds, 5 seconds. And it's not to say that it's not a great skill to cultivate to capture someone's attention because you need that in writing, period. But in Substack, I just feel like I have space to breathe and I have space to be a bit more poetic and long winded. And there's also something really radically freeing about feeling like no one knows me over there, which it's not true. A lot of people know me over there. My mom was one of my first subscribers. And Eli is a subscriber. Like there's people that follow me there that clearly know me. But I think even just the shift from the platform I built my audience on to a place where technically no one knew me,
Hmm.
I noticed I was starting to write stories that were a little bit bolder and a little bit edgier. And part of that I think is just the freedom to think like, okay, maybe nobody sees me over here. So I love it. I'm slowly like bringing people over. I'm like, I don't get paid for this. I just literally want to see more people write in a liberated way. The very first day I got on Substack, this is not a common experience, but it was just really interesting to me. I get on Substack and they have a place for you to publish your work, but then they also have like what I would describe as kind of like a threads platform where you can
Mhm.
publish just like short, sentences or two. And I think the very first thing I said was that leaving my husband did wonders for my writing. And that was like the first note I published, and it felt edgy and bold, and it went crazy viral, like thousands of likes. And since then, now I get like a note that has like 2 likes on it. I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay, so that was not common." But what happened was, of course, anytime something goes viral, you get great attention and you get some not so great attention. And there was this person who retweeted it or whatever the kids say, and they said like 2 things. They were like, 1, I bet she's off Substack within 3 months. 2, or her followers that come to her like all man-hating, blah, blah, and like just went for me. And I remember thinking, "Oh, this is where a lot of people stop." They get one comment like this and they go, "They're right. They're right about me. I can't possibly be this version of myself." And then they never come back to their artistry or their creativity. And it was such a clear line in the sand moment where I thought, "Okay, obviously I get to keep moving." One, because it's just funny to me, but two, it was a great experience to be reminded of what people are so terrified of.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, I meet that part of myself so often now that it doesn't have the same grip as it used to." The fear of like, "Well, what if people cancel me?" It's like, "Bitch, I'm a human. You can't cancel me." Like,
Mhm.
what does that even mean? Even people who have quote unquote been canceled, they always come back in some shape or form, different, evolved, new. So to that, I just say like, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen you do this recently where, if someone does, I don't know, we can call them haters, trolls, whatever, they have a critique of your work. And then you have been even bringing that out of the shadow and being like, hey, this person said this. And I think you said something like, and they're not wrong,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there's something so cool about that. It's like, oh, they can't actually talk badly about me if I'm owning that. They can do it, but like what happens is that you're not letting it have the impact on you that they want it to have.
Hmm.
And it takes the power away from it.
100%. I think Madeline Moon was actually the first person I ever saw that did this at such a high level, where she was making art out of things that were uncomfortable or awkward. And to me now, just everything feels like an extension of artistry. But for me, my artistry is through writing. And so when I got that hate comment from a woman who basically was like, "How dare you make a living without a college degree in writing?" And I was like, you're right. I don't have a degree. I also don't have a bunch of student loans from a degree that I literally was never going to use in the first place. So I wrote about it because the what happened was I got this surge of energy where at first, I'm a human of like, of course, things move through me. I experience emotion. So I was angry. I was really angry because she doesn't know my path. She doesn't know what I've walked through to be the woman that can speak so clearly on stage, on podcast, write things, write my book, and it pissed me off, and then I thought, "Okay, I'm gonna write about it," and I did, and it just poured out of me, and a woman actually commented on the work that I put out. She said, "I felt that straight from your heart," and I said, "'Cause it was written straight from that place," and I think that when we allow life to move through us as writers, everything just becomes a story. It doesn't matter if it's the most fucked up, awful thing in the world, because that's gonna happen to us at many points throughout our life, or the most blissful or the most mundane, it's all a story. And that just makes every morning feel really magical because I wake up and I'm like, what magic is going to happen today that is literal fuel for my writing? And then it just makes it all mean something and have a purpose.
I want to break that down a little bit because what you just said is so important,
Mm,
especially in reference to what we were talking about earlier, which was like, oh, yeah, people have become so structured, especially women, and how they think they need to write
yeah.
because it fits into the identity box of how they got to where they are today. Right. And so it's like, if I
Hmm.
write differently, then that's not going to be what my audience wants, or it's not going to
Mm,
bring in the money the way that I know that it has worked in the past, et cetera. And what you're talking about here is really shifting out of, okay, writing from the point of your mind and coming into writing from your heart. And
mm,
I want to know, like, do you have a process to help you to tap into that heart space and
yeah.
that more like open channel to receive what it is that wants to move through you.
Totally. So a couple things come to mind. Number one is I believe all women always know what they want to write about. Truly. Like maybe not at the surface, maybe not the first question I ask you, but if you sit with, I use this question for all the women I serve. So what's most alive in you? And like really let yourself sit with that and maybe go ask yourself a couple of times until you get to the meat of what's the thing that's actually on your heart. Usually it comes right up. Sometimes we have to go a couple layers deeper, but usually what's most alive is also what's most magical and what's most potent. And it could be anything from like an unexpected bill to a conversation with your partner you've been ruminating on to a dream on your heart. Like we know the stories that are just running in our head all day long. I'm just asking you now to pay witness to them. And the other access point that I really love is what are 5 truths that you're just completely avoiding right now? 5 things, if I were to say, you're avoiding writing about this, you're avoiding talking about this, most people have some concept of what that thing is that they're annoyingly avoiding. And then inside of, I hold several different spaces for women to write because I want as many women claiming writer as possible. And not from the place of like, you're paid to do this, although some will go on to do that, but truly just as like, this is your thing, this is your calling, you're a writer, like claim it, take up space with it. Just like someone could say they're a dancer or a singer or whatever, their form of creativity. I think all women need that because I think we're truly at our best when we are creating, whether that's life or art or anything in between, food. I will have them move. I have them move their bodies to get out of their heads because if I just prompt them, usually what happens is there's a whole lot of mess. They're thinking about their taxes and what they have to cook for dinner because as women, we multitask a million things in a day. So I usually just immediately have them go right into song, movement, on the floor, primal, making sound. And then as soon as the song is over, it's usually something lyricless that they can just drop into their womb space, move around, get breathy, and then I'll have them go to their seat and then I'll prompt them. So there's no space in between the movement and the writing. And what I found is that women just open up the channel so much easier that way. And it's really cool to see.
Mm. Yeah, I find that having a designated space, like a container
Mm,
where you feel held and guided through the process to get out of your autopilot, to get out of the way you
totally.
normally create,
Hmm.
and to feel guided and also to feel safe, to be like,
Yes,
yeah, I can explore my truths here and the fears and the doubts that come up in the writing process, we can talk about them.
totally.
Right. And I love this bringing the embodiment piece in
Hmm.
because the movement, the breath, the sound, it helps us to move beyond the conscious mind. It helps us to get into the body, to move the energy
Hmm.
that's stagnant, that's stuck, so that we can receive that intuitive guidance that is not forced. That is like,
Totally.
okay, I am open, I'm present, I'm connected to myself. I can feel my emotions, I can feel the
Hmm.
sensations in
Hmm.
my body, and then it can come through, right?
I'm so grateful and excited to have you here. Thank you for pressing play and tuning in. I have a powerful invitation for you. I'm excited to share that I'm hosting a brand new free 3-day online experience called the Magnetic Leader Activation from June 9th to June 11th. This activation is designed to awaken your self-trust, embody your authentic expression, and magnetize abundance without the burnout and hustle. If you're ready to stop playing small, lead from your feminine power, and step into your soul calling, this is your moment, babe. To join me for this free 3-day event, click on the link in the show notes to claim your spot. Also, when you join me for this experience, you're going to be surrounded by incredible light workers from around the world, women who are on their path to feminine awakening and making a positive impact in the world. I can't wait to connect with you live and share this transformational experience with you.
Absolutely. And, writing like anything, I think, on this planet can be a spiritual practice. And like any spiritual practice, some days it's like putting shit on paper. And you're just like, what is coming out of me? This is awful. It's like when we go to meditate and it's just noise, 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 noise. And some days when I go to write, I'm in the process of writing my book right now. I'm like, this is trash. This is so not good. And it's such a humbling experience that is honestly mirrored by anything worth pursuing in life.
Mhm.
Some days don't feel good. And then other days, it's like God themselves is just moving through my channel into my fingertips right onto the page. And it's the humbling experience to know both are necessary, to know that the shit on the page and feeling God move through you are both part of the process, and to not make one better than the other. It just instead makes it feel like when it is flow and it is magic, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, more. And then when it's shit, you're just like, okay, keep going. And I like to say, let it be messy, then let it be magic, because
Mm.
the mess is the precursor to the magic. You can't have magic without getting a little messy first.
Yeah, there's so much here. I want to start because I know that I think Elizabeth Gilbert has this thing about like the messy first or the shitty first draft. It might
Oh,
have been Elizabeth Gilbert or someone
maybe.
else.
I don't know,
And
but
when
it's
I
so
was when
true.
I was writing my book, like I probably only like 7 chapters in, I was talking to my editor and I was having this block and I was just like, I it's taking me so long. It's not flowing. Like
Mm,
it's feeling challenging. And she really encouraged me. She was like, let it be really messy. Like,
yeah,
we also have editors. We're here to look over it again. You can always go back, like, rather let stuff out on the page and then we can refine it rather than have
totally.
nothing on the page and then
Yeah,
we can't really work with it.
totally.
And that was super helpful for me. It really opened the channel in that.
Mm.
And something that you said on Substack, I really loved it. It was like a little, maybe like one liner. You're like, I can't wait until I'm in luteal phase again so my bitchy writing can come through. So I wanted to talk even about as a woman in different phases of our cycle. Like there's going to
Yeah.
be times I know for sure there's times where I'm like, I don't have anything to say. And then I'm in the like self criticism of like, I'm not creative and
Mhm,
I don't even have anything to share. What do I even want to talk about?
mhm.
And then 3 days later, I'm like, everything is coming through. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have a similar experience.
100%. It's funny, luteal phase can be challenging for a lot of women because it's can be heavy and messy, and it's my favorite time to write because the bitch comes out and it's like the filter drops, and also I feel so much more deeply in luteal, and it's like that 2-week window where I'm like all bets are off. And then, in like the more springtime summery phases, I do have a harder time accessing my words. I tend to be a little bit more direct, a little bit more logical, and it's more of just like knowing that both types of writing matter. And I think even if we zoom out, when you were talking about like the polished version that you were wanting to have in your writing, but just needing it to be really messy first, it just also makes me think of just how much of this is a metaphor for how we show up in life too, right? Like there's so many times where I just want to show up. I'm a Virgo, hello, like as the polished, put together, very clear version of myself. But we're humans. We're all so complicated and messy. And there's so much stuff under the surface that we don't see. And I think that's why I love writing so much, is because it's this permission slip to be the unpolished version. Just be the messy, dumped out, bleeding onto the page version of yourself. And if you can do it on the page, maybe you can do it in your life too. And one of my favorite books of all time is Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. Have you ever read
I
it?
haven't read it.
Oh my God, this book changed my life. My best friend gave it to me, I think when I was going through my separation. And it's the kind of book you don't have to read sequentially, you can bounce around. And there's a chapter called Write Like a Motherfucker. And it's a book where she had a column called Dear Sugar for years, where people would write in and she would answer their anonymous questions. But she's the best example I think I've ever found of a woman who just spits truth, but in such a beautiful way that you feel held, but also exposed at the same time. And one of the women wrote in and she was like, I'm 22 and I want to be a writer and it's so hard because my book is shit. And she just goes for it. And the response is essentially like, it's gonna be crap. The first version always is. Write like a motherfucker anyway, right? Like your soul's on fire, right? Like you're setting fire to the page, because that's how you go from one day being kind of messy, sloppy to extraordinary, is you have so many more reps between that point. And anytime I feel stuck, I go back to that section and I read it in some of my writers groups because it's such a powerful page of just write like a
I
motherfucker.
love that. That
Yeah.
one liner, you can always come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that I see a lot for women who are wanting to pursue creative passions or start a business is that they're often comparing their first draft to someone else's like decade long career where
Totally.
they've spent all this time going through those challenges where they also felt like a beginner at one point,
Mhm.
and you don't see the behind the scenes of the doubts and the fears and the resistance and the blocks that they had to get through. And so
Mhm.
it's so easy to be like, oh, well, I'm never going to get to where I want to be, or the first draft should be perfect because I
Right.
see someone else's draft.
Yeah.
And that happened to me when I was reading a book while I was writing a book, which
Mm,
sometimes was so frustrating because I was like,
totally.
oh my God, this is so good. And then I remembered I was comparing like my first or second draft to someone else's fifth or sixth draft. And I
Mhm.
actually heard them talking on a podcast
No
saying
way.
that they ended up rewriting most of the book after like 3 drafts. And I was like, wow, like that
Oh.
takes so much devotion and dedication to do that. And I really got to hear the behind the scenes of
Mm,
this person that I was comparing myself to.
totally.
Yeah. So I think it's so important whether you are starting a business or you're kind of at the beginning of exploring a new career path, like let yourself be a beginner. And it's hard for us to let
Mhm.
ourselves do that.
Oh my gosh. And you touched on something so important, which is the path of devotion and to really know what it's like to pour your whole heart and soul into something. And I think social media has sort of wrecked our ability to focus and to do things for longer periods of time, but it's also showed us like even when I go to write and I went from writing short form content my whole career to then trying to write a book. At first, I literally couldn't write more than a couple of pages at a time. It was like this part of me that was so trained to write in these short form sections and I just think anything worth pursuing that you love is going to take a tremendous amount of devotion, whether that's being a mother or being a writer or being anything that you want to put time and attention into. And the path of devotion will just ask you to come back over and over, even when it's complicated, even when it's messy. And I just love that you name like the devotion that it takes to bring sometimes these ideas we have in our minds through our bodies into the world, not only is it wildly vulnerable, it requires so much devotion, and I think that's a really beautiful process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me 2 years to write my book.
Wow.
And when I first started writing, I was like, "Oh, I'll be done by the end of the year." And it just that wasn't my process.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people who are like, "Yeah, I went to a cabin and I wrote, my book in 3 days and it just came through." And I'm
That has
like,
not been my process.
"Beautiful. That's I love that for you." And that hasn't been my process. And I
Yeah.
just want to name that because I think that it's important to name that there isn't one way that it happens and
Mhm.
there's different types of
Right.
creators. And yeah, one thing as we're talking about social media that I just wanted to bring in the conversation and hear your perspective on
Mhm.
is the introduction of AI and
Mm.
how that's maybe impacting women's creativity, or what are you seeing with
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. So, I personally have loved having AI in my back pocket. I think where we're seeing ourselves go awry is when we're giving AI our complete power and have no voice of our own. So, we give it no prompt and just basically say, write this thing for me. And it comes out cold and dry and maybe like a fraction feeling like you. Whereas the way I've used it and leveraged it is I'll write something that's purely from my own body, mind, heart, soul. And I'll drop it into ChatGPT and I'll say, can you first help me just edit for punctuation and grammar? Because, like, anyone who's been in a really channeled state where you're just flowing, it's coming out like gibberish. Like, it's just my fingers can't move fast enough to capture what I'm feeling. And so, like, it's barely legible. And so I'm like, okay, help me just make this legible first and foremost. And then I'll ask it questions. So I'll say something like, if you didn't know me, what questions would you have about this piece? And so instead of using it as something to write for me or to take my words and make it their own, I'm asking it things that prompt questions to make me go deeper. And that has been tremendously helpful. It's like having a writing mentor in my back pocket, specifically for my book, but also when I'm writing things for Substack or wherever.
Mhm.
And it's just it always helps me. It's like having a personal trainer. It's like I could have written this on my own and it could have been amazing and I still do. Or I run this through ChatGPT and I ask it for permission to look at this through the lens of somebody who's never experienced my work before. What do you notice? What's missing? And it'll give me feedback. And then I get to decide as a sovereign being, do I want this feedback? Do I like this feedback? Because if you've used ChatGPT, you'll see sometimes it's really off and sometimes it's really on. And I'm so grateful to have a tool like that. And I think we just have to be careful about, like anything, giving our power away because you are the vessel. Like you, as the person, are the vessel with the ideas, with the creativity that we're all pulling from this same ether. It's your body of work to move it through you. But can you use a tool to help you make it even more potent? Fuck yeah. I hope that we all continue to use tools like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. And it's been something for me as a business owner because we do wear many different hats.
Yeah.
And my deepest passion is teaching and coaching and speaking and creating this podcast. And I love writing. And when it comes to, let's say, I just ran a big 3-day event called Pleasure Queen. And when I look at how much copy is
Yeah.
required from everything from even the reminder emails to
Totally.
promoting the event, to invite women to come, to then like showing up and teaching the event, the amount of capacity it takes. And so, what I'm finding is using this tool as a way to actually create more space for me
Totally.
to do the things that I really love to do and
Yes.
not from a place of like shortcut or trying to get it to do it
Totally.
for me, but actually to be like, hey, I have these ideas and I'm not an editor. Like having
Right.
someone edit my stuff
Yeah.
right there is really amazing. And I've actually
Yeah.
been thinking recently, I'm curious what's going to happen with the book industry because
Yeah.
when you have a tool like ChatGPT, there are going to be some things that are really changing huge
I
that we're
know.
seeing firsthand right
I
now.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that it was a tool that gave you more spaciousness. Cause I think, have you read The Big Leap by
Hmm.
Gay Hendricks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like anything we can do to access our zone of genius more. And for anyone that hasn't read it or learned about it, he talks about, well, one, he talks about the idea of us all having these upper limits in our life. But beyond that, a lot of it comes from when we're actually in our zone of genius. And what you just said is permission to live in your zone of genius. Because when we're in that state, that's the moments where you're like, how am I getting paid for this? Like, this feels like the most fun, magical thing I could possibly be doing. And you're using a tool to give you more of that.
Hmm.
I'm just such a yes to that. And I have so many moments of that when I'm in a space and there's 8 women and they're writing and they're crying and they're loving each other. And one woman, I just wrote about this on my Instagram. She was a writer as a child, basically put down her pen because life got in the way, went through a series of just hardships in her life, was like aching to be seen as a writer, decided to join one of my programs, was just building her confidence, like breaking through all these barriers. And then she saw on Instagram somebody essentially doing like a publishing deal where they were collecting women's stories. She applied for it, she got it, and went from just like hiding in plain sight to getting a publishing deal in 6 weeks. And like those are the moments where I'm like, my little girl would be like, no way that this is our life, that we are getting paid to help women free themselves and be writers. Like, what? How did that happen? Just forever the coolest experience.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can even see just like how your face lit
Oh,
up, your heart
yeah.
open. You're
Yeah.
just like, yes,
Yes,
this feels
yes.
so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that feeling is so special.
So special
Yeah,
and possible for everyone.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the work that you're doing with women. And as we're wrapping up today, I have a couple of fun questions that have come
Ooh,
through as we've been talking.
cool.
So you've mentioned the word magic several
Mm.
times in our conversation, which is something I don't know if you know on the new AirPods, you can put a word, you can get it
No.
engraved with like, and you don't even have to pay extra for it. You just order it.
What?
And I recently put magic on
Ah,
mine because I think it can be so easy to forget about the magic.
yeah.
And it is a practice to look for the magic. And so I'm curious, what are you creating space for magic in your
Mm.
life right now?
I love that. So, Leave Room for Magic is the name of my blog because it just feels so passionately about letting go of the reins of control. And as a former control freak, like that's a really important part of my journey. And I think about magic in the sense of the things we can't describe, the things that are not logical, the unseen. Like when I was just in a coffee shop in Palm Beach and I ran smack into my neighbor from Austin. And I'm like, what? Like, how, of all the people, places, moments, like that's magic to me. And the particular flavor I'm cultivating right now are two things. I'm currently living nomadically. My partner and I, when we got engaged, we said, let's just send it for a year, which is really wild because I lived this version with my ex husband. So to get to experience this, but in a really loving, magical chapter of my life, it feels like the universe went, try again, like do this again and see what can happen. But we're not planning any part of our trip. So we don't have a home base. We're basically just leaping from one spot to the next. And the very beginning of our trip has already showed us that when we really create space, like create the vacuum for what I say is like life wanting to move through us versus us lodging our way through, it's been so magical. Like the first spot we found has been like beyond my wildest dreams. And it came from me letting go of what I thought we were supposed to do, and it just plopped right in my lap. And I'm like, okay, it's working. So that's part one. But the other way we're doing it is with our wedding. I've been married before, so I feel very relaxed when it comes to planning a wedding. But my previous self was very type A bride, and I had the spreadsheets, and I was going through like the venue and this, and I'm just like, mm-mm. I want to be wandering the streets of Italy and hear somebody over say something. And then I go, oh, interesting. I'm going to go follow that breadcrumb and see where it leads me. And that takes me to my wedding venue. Like I just have no capacity right now or desire for anything else.
Hmm.
So I'm really just every day allowing myself, and I literally ask myself that question when I wake up, what magic's going to happen today? And it makes everything feel like a game, from walking my dog, the most mundane of tasks, to like, who am I going to run into? What bumper sticker am I going to see? Like what butterfly is going to land on my head? I have no idea. Life is just so magical when you expect it and when you're looking for it. And I just want to give so many more women that permission slip to leave some room for magic.
Hmm. Yeah, I really love a lot of the teachings from A Course in Miracles, which is a
Yeah.
metaphysical text. And another
Yeah.
word for magic is miracles. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, what miracles are coming my way? And
Totally.
I'll often say, in my journal, which to me actually is where prayer comes through a lot when
Mm.
I'm doing my morning journaling, is like it's kind of my direct conversation with source, spirit, God, universe, where it's like, hey, I'm open to the magic and miracles that are coming my way today.
Mhm.
And I love this, creating the space for magic. There's a deep surrender that has to happen in order
Totally.
to be able to create that space, because
Yeah.
you said you have to let go of control and having to know
Mm.
exactly what's coming next and exactly where you're going and exactly what the plans are going to be. And it takes a lot of self-trust, and
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that with a partner too, that you're both
Yeah.
in that adventure of leaving room for the magic.
Yeah. I called him on. I was like, I have an idea. I was like, we're running our own surrender experiment. He was like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So he's on
He's
board.
on board. Well, you guys did meet in an energy healing
That's
session, so
true.
he's open to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh, I love that. Okay, final question. If there's a woman who's like, "Oh, I really want to write, but I'm not a good writer, or I don't know that I'm ever gonna, be able to step into that," what
Mm.
might you say to her?
I like to think of this concept of our limiting beliefs, especially when it comes to our creativity, as the initiation, not the obstacle. So every single woman I've ever met who has desired to express herself in a public way has had some version of that thought. I'm not good enough. Who's going to listen? Who am I to? Will anybody like this? We literally all have it. Every single one of us. So rather than it being the obstacle of like, well, this is why I can't, it's your initiation. You having that belief and choosing to move forward anyway is the initiation into the greatest act of creativity and expression of your life. And so if you can allow yourself to feel that experience and to know we're literally all walking around with that inside of our own chest, maybe not to the same degree, but we all have it, then you realize you're part of the collective instead of on the outside. It's just that some people choose to take the initiation and some people don't. And I
Mhm.
really hope that you choose to be initiated.
Beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing
Oh my
that.
gosh, of
Thank you
course.
so much for all of your
Yeah.
wisdom today and
My
your magic.
pleasure.
And I know that this is going to unlocks so much for many women who have
Yeah.
that writer inside of them that wants to come out. So you mentioned today that you have several different, writing groups and stuff for women who want to take the next step to connect with you to learn more about your work. Where should they go?
Yeah, so Instagram's definitely still where I play the most, at Bryn Daylor. I run a writers group called the Writers Rebellion, which is just mwah, because it's literally meant for women who want to rebel against society and what everyone's told them about the truths that they can't tell. I'm like, come here and tell them. And then I'm going to be running a writers retreat in a very special location that'll be dropping at some point soon. But hint, it's like the most romantic place on the planet. And yeah, and also Substacks. But if you come to Instagram first, that's where everything else comes from. So
Okay, great. We're going to link this in the show notes
yeah.
so everyone can come find you. And yeah, I'm so excited to
Hmm.
see this chapter of your life and of your passion and your calling
Yeah.
continue to
Hmm.
unfold. I feel like you're on the edge of just like
Yeah.
massive expansion in
Oh,
so
I
many
feel
ways.
it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for saying that and for having this platform. It's been so special to witness your blossoming and despite, like talk about initiations, what you've gone through and how anyone could have just said, I'm done. And and that been okay, a completely okay path. But despite that, the way that you chose to rebuild and move forward and what you've created and impacted as a result has been really tremendous to see. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Thanks for seeing me, babe.
Yeah, always.
Oh.